Hello. Welcome back to Rantcraft. My name is Lilith, and today I'm going to talk to you about another very political thing, and that is the fact that every single problem in America is either slavery, Reagan, or car dependency. And car dependency wasn't originally on the list, but I think that you will find some uh, that a lot of the problems that I've identified in our culture, and this will include you conservatives too. If you're a conservative and you're watching this, well, don't feel like you have to leave because there are even problems that you think that I don't think that are caused by slavery, Reagan, and car dependency. And so I would say that the first one would be, well, obviously because of the content of the video, car dependency is sort of is caused by both of these things. You can't really avoid the hand of the market that is car dependency. Um, and that's certainly the case with car dependency itself. It's caused by slavery because what slavery did is it basically allowed people to sprawl out because they had other people doing the hard work for them. So people in America, unlike in a lot of places, sorry, I got to turn the volume down. This is loud as hell on my end. It's limited on your end. Um, but anyway, so what this caused essentially was urban, not urban, rich whites were able to kind of flee from suburban areas, and in turn, this created a society wherein everything is far apart and you need a car to get anywhere because we designed our places to be essentially navigable only by the rich who could have afforded a car. Except now, well, it's not just the rich. Everyone has to afford a car, or you die. Pretty much, you just keel over and die. I've got the light mine thing on because holy shit, when you're mining trees and they're like huge, you'll thank me. But yeah, so that is the number one elephant in the room that I have to address. It's actually caused by the one of the main three problems in our society is caused by the other two main problems in our society. Who could have who could have guessed that that would be the case? Certainly I could have. All right. And next on the list is wealth inequality, which was caused by both slavery and Reagan. So, Ronald Reagan had a bunch of policies that profited the rich and did not profit the not rich. Well, funny thing, when you put power in the hands of people who are already powerful, they tend to just get more powerful. And this was certainly the case for Ronald Reagan, and a lot of his policies relied upon this idea of trickle down economics. I know you've heard that before, and a lot of his policies relied on the idea of this somehow helping the poor. I can tell you that it did not. In fact, made the poor poorer. Because I mean, I know if I got more money, I would probably try to keep people who could potentially be my competition out of my way. And turns out that the billionaires in their little suede suits think the same because that's the correct thing to do if you're trying to extend your power as much as possible. And so what this ended up doing is basically making it so that they pull the rug out from them. They make the avenues of getting rich because they don't want someone else also getting rich significantly harder. And, slavery also was a big part in this as well as, it created this massive divide of people because whites got a head start. They got a massive head start. And so now like because and even if you aren't black or even if your ancestors were not enslaved because they weren't in America or whatever, uh a lot of the mechanisms which were made to keep people who were enslaved down also affect you still to this day. And I'll probably get more into a lot of these points, but for now, I'm just gonna keep it a little bit light. Oh my god, there's a cat like right on my keyboard. Thank you. Oh my goodness, do not get off my keyboard. Oh my god. I hope she doesn't press the stop recording button. That's fucking hell. Okay. Uh, but yeah, like I said, slavery made it so that whites got a massive head start, greatly strengthening the wealth inequality. And the wealth inequality is what made it so that even poor whites have it worse now in terms of relative income than their peers did. Like if you're a white person now and you're poor, which let's be real, you probably are poor. You might think that you have a pretty high quality of life, and that might be true, but that doesn't mean you're not poor. Because the difference between you and someone who can miss a week of work is probably really high. Or actually, it's probably only like a thousand a week or whatnot. Depends on how you live. But ultimately, that Reagan and slavery both influenced our wealth inequality, and wealth inequality is one of the main things that influences a lot of other of these societal ills on our list. Oh my goodness, eating a burger with no honey mustard. Do I just go in the water and tank it? Yep. Yep, that was the play. I'm epic. I mean, epic gamer. Um, anyway. Massive monopolies, also Reagan. Like I said, he put more power in the hands of the already powerful. And when you do that, they turns out people don't like giving up power. Who could have like guessed that if you make people powerful, they will try to get more powerful and they'll try to stay powerful. And I could go into detail about all this, but this is a series in which I play Minecraft and I talk about politics. And I feel like getting too deep into the weeds of like, oh, proof. Do you have a statement? Like, yeah, I don't like that I'm gonna say this, but this is for my own convenience, and I'm a self-serving creature. So, just ask Google AI if you need proof for any of these statements. You could just fucking Google it and click AI mode because I know that you've likely been brain rotted by the Antichrist Sam Altman, which I'll get more into later. Sam Altman is the devil, I think, and he's the worst. And what the fuck? Okay. Um, and I could get more into that, but Sam Altman, he is also a product of slavery and a product of Ronald Reagan. A lot of Ronald Reagan's policies right now, and a lot of his lack of his deregulation of companies is starting to bite us in the ass with things like AI taking jobs and AI doing things that are just sometimes just plainly illegal or aiding people in doing things that are just straight up unethical. A lot of that, a lot of his power comes from the proliferation of corporate rights over workers' rights, as well as, and this is also a kicker, as well as the proliferation of slavery. You might think, oh, well, slavery can't be the reason for Sam Altman, but literally, our economy was built on the idea of getting free labor, right? That's the reason why America was able to become so powerful. We got generationally free labor, right? And yeah, like a ton of societies had slavery. We like innovated slavery. America redefined what it means to have slaves. Um and you know, like there's a reason that a lot of the things that Hitler was saying was based on the things that America was doing. And also, yeah, Nazis, those are No brainer. Those are because of slavery as well. A lot of the mechanisms used to keep Black Americans down, turns out they were straight up inspirational to little old Dolph. Who could have guessed that Adolf Hitler would be inspired by one of the worst things in the world? I know I couldn't. I know that's a shocker to me that Adolf Hitler took inspiration from slavery. It's not, but oh my god, I'm starving. Eating a burger with no honey mustard. Eating a burger with no honey. There we go. I should. Yeah, my fat ass had to gorge herself. I'm gonna go check on the. Wait. I should probably get this door back. And it just kind of makes you think. Like, if we maybe things would be better. I know this might be controversial. Maybe things would be better if we didn't enslave people. Maybe the world would be just a little bit happier if we didn't do one of the worst crimes in history. And a lot of people don't. Whenever you bring up slavery, they're like, "Oh my God, it's over." But its shadow still lingers over us. And right now, its shadow lingers over us in the fact that people really want a way back to get free labor. And granted, people would want a way to get free labor even if slavery didn't exist. But let's be real, slavery certainly created a desire for free labor. You would not see the same desire, the same sentiment so strongly if we didn't already have the means for free labor, which created it. And you might be thinking like, oh well, yeah, slavery is bad, but it made us super rich. It made us, but arguably, removing black people from the economy, proved to be pretty awful, right? And the reintroduction of black people into the American economy is, in fact, one of its strongest points. Like World War II, one of the reasons that World War II saw a big boom after it, you would think, yeah, it's just because of the guns, but it's not just because of the guns. One of the biggest factors within it was the fact that it was a rebalancer for a lot of black people. A lot of black people were able to join the military and make military money and get military experiences, which were profitable. And after World War II, we actually saw the massive reintroduction of not reintroduction, but we saw the massive elevation of black people for the first time. And that's why the civil rights movement was able to happen, because people can't exactly protest with their mouth when they're hungry, How good are you at fighting for your rights when you're hungry? If I took away all your food right now, I don't think you could fight for shit, right? And so there's something that uh the opposite of which actually profited us. It's not just that, oh, slavery's horrible. It's also that the alternative, that liberation, is a strengthening thing. That it may, like, that is one of the strongest points in American history, specifically because black people could buy things. And it turns out we had a lot of black people. It turns out when you have a lot of mouths to feed, and some of them can also reintroduce like money back into the economy, you're actually making more money. When more people can make money, your economy is healthier. I'd say, in fact, that's the most defining. Wow, this is a lot of ore. I forgot I put on the 4 times ore mod. Yeah, I'm not just like lucky as hell. I mean, I am lucky as hell in this instance, but 4 times ore. But and a lot of people, whenever they see video essays, they're like, "Oh, well, you're just negative." So there you go. There's your, you know, ounce of leftist positivity. If you're not racist, maybe you'll make more money. Uh, maybe. Um, and massive monopolies, that they've caused a lot of the problems that we have today. But I would say that arguably it's more like on the Reagan end of like reasons that we're so massively fucked right now. Um oh, terrible city designs. I think I mentioned this earlier, but that is because of slavery. because people were able to sprawl out. Same thing with the car dependency thing. People were able to sprawl out, and therefore they did, and therefore, oh, sorry, I had like gas, had to like get away from the mic. um, and therefore, we got more isolated. We got more car dependent, and because cars are like a crutch for city design, right? What they do is make it so that you basically don't have to think if you only care about people getting from point A to point B. And most American mayors and whatnot, that's all they cared about. Or they were honestly, a lot of people were just blinded by the optimism of like, oh my god, cars, they're so good. That it really just made it so that our cities are just designed like shit, and because like people could place their houses wherever they wanted now, right? Because of cars, and a lot of people wanted to get away from the noise, and so what happened was a lot of people placed their houses far away, and then roads were made to accommodate that, and then uh, those cities expanded, but the houses and the businesses were just placed fucking willy nilly. And it's really, I mean, I think that allowing people to just place their business or whatever willy nilly just isn't a good strategy in general. I think that we should have some more centralized means of controlling where people put their businesses and like locate themselves. I don't think it should be like, oh, you've gotta, but I think it should certainly be like you are heavily incentivized to, or rather it's harder to do to, just sprawl out. Because like it should be like that's something that fucking lords and nobles did, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna take all this land over here and I'm gonna have a massive fucking like, of course, logically it should cost more and be a little bit harder to take up a lot of space, especially if you're just like living and it's just by yourself and you're not even like a farmer or anything, right? I know people with yards that are like several acres. Like, most people, if you have an acre, what are you even doing with more than an acre, right? When I grew up, I lived on like a quarter acre, and dude, a fucking acre is massive, right? An acre is like, holy shit, we're in the big leagues, right? When you grow up on an acre of land, and granted, I grew up in a shitty trailer, and this actually kind of highlights the point. I grew up on a shitty trailer, and we were able to afford a quarter acre. Well, we weren't exactly able to afford it, but through manipulation, and several other um, dark skills that my grandmother had with her powers of evil, we were able to have an acre to, or at least live on a quarter acre, and a quarter acre is massive, and there are people out there right now in America just taking up so much more space than you. Oh, and you might be one of them. You might be like, "Oh shit, she's talking about me. I I live on 4 acres." And it's not that I hate you. It's just that you're kind of wasting resource. Like, let's be real. If you see people When you see people with lawns, right? How frequently do they go out in their lawns? Not often. I have a lawn, and we barely touch it. At worst, at the best, the lawn is like, oh, I guess if the driveway is full of cars, we can walk through the lawn. But that's just something that cars allowed. Cars allowed people to just take up as much space as they wanted without having to think, is this going to be a far walk? Am I going to, how long is this going to be? And that really just created a lot of conditions which will stack, which I'll talk about in the rest of these. Sorry, I know it might seem like I'm doing nothing. I'm actually doing something, and that something is I'm petting a cat while I'm waiting for my ores to smelt. Do you have to? You don't have to smelt lapis lazuli, unless I'm stupid. I'm a bit of a Minecraft boomer, so sorry if you aren't on my wavelength right now. I'll just get 8, and then yeah, that should be about right. Um, One thing that a lot of people also don't, I don't think people talk about is the weakened worker protections by, and obviously Ronald Reagan. He resulted in some weakened worker protections. But something I think more important is the effect of slavery. Slavery has been the enemy of worker protections since day one, and like obviously, like it's the opposite of workers being protected, right? But it's a little bit more complicated than you think, and that's simply because a lot of the mechanisms we have to allow people to um, treat their workers like shit were created because motherfuckers who miss slavery. Essentially, I think a lot of our problems are caused by motherfuckers just missing slavery and being like, I miss when I could pay people for nothing. And a lot of it was also created because when Black Americans entered the workforce, well, we gotta pay them less, right? We gotta, we gotta make it harder for them because they're Black. They're holding me down. I'm not saying, oh God, if that gets clipped, I mean, I'm not gonna get famous or anything unless I Charlie Kirk somebody. Uh, but a lot of this is just the fault of the fact that we just had this mechanism which provided us with free labor. Um, I want to see you enslave people for several thousand years and then act normal afterward. Spoiler alert, it's pretty much impossible, right? Once you dehumanize a group of people like that, the problems you will cause just to because like slavery is a strong market force, right? Like slavery powers the world right now. Even businesses today are run on slavery because even though the consequences could be like life ruining for the companies involved, it doesn't matter because that element, getting rid of workers. I mean, that's the reason we're developing AI. We're developing demon tech. All right, just so that we can enslave people more, or just so that we can get more free labor. Because free labor in a world wherein you need hands doing things is one of the strongest things on earth, and it has tainted America to its absolute core. You know, uh, and worker protections are one of the biggest, I think, biggest victims of slavery. There's a reason why in Europe they have more advanced worker protections than us Americans. And of course, Reagan's also an influence. And when I say Reagan, I don't even necessarily mean literally Reagan, more like the spirit of Ronald Reagan, right? The the Palpatine. You ever seen Flight of the Dragons, where that one motherfucker was giving his evil ass speech about how my tech will ruin man. That dude, that's Ronald Reagan, right? His technologies, his magic has poisoned the hearts of man by essentially allowing the powerful to get more powerful. And also Reagan, I would argue, is caused by slavery. And you might be saying, well, how's Reagan caused by slavery? Because a lot of American racism caused by slavery. Obviously, when you create an attitude of dehumanizing certain groups of people, people don't want to stop. And if you're racist, you might be saying, well, what's the problem? And this is where I have the part of the video for you conservatives, because I love you. And so if you're a leftist, you've heard what you need to hear. And honestly, a lot of those things that I said, if you're already a leftist, you probably, let's be real, that's like elementary stuff, right? This is just me on my soapbox whining. It's not necessarily an educational affair, but if you are conservative, this will be a little bit of an educational affair because a lot of the things I'm talking about might be new to you. Not because I think you're stupid, but because I think you've been misinformed and kept in a bubble about really just a lot of things. And I don't think that many conservatives are watching somebody rant in Minecraft about politics, but maybe if I can reach out someone, that'll be worth it, right? But all right, this if you're a leftoid, leave and like 5 milliseconds, or you're gonna get triggered. I'm not gonna say anything like racist, but you're gonna get triggered like the snowflake liberal you are. Okay, so um, the first one of the major talking points of conservatives, right? One of the main things I hear from them, not to like say they're like, oh, you're like talking heads or whatever, but one of the main things I hear from them is like, oh, the decline of family. Well, do you know what caused a lot of the decline of family values? The isolation created by our car dependency. The isolation created by our usage of slavery, because I think that uh, you know, devaluing the African American family has also put us in a scenario where we've simultaneously devalued the white family. That has had a ripple effect, which caused, I think at least, um, a complete devaluation of the nuclear family structure entirely. Right? It If you want to devalue the lives of other people, you'll find that a lot of that detachment from empathy does not stay exclusively aimed towards black people. A lot of that detachment from empathy, um, it ricochets, right? Like, why would I? Tell me, if we are in the business, if we are in the world wherein the strong survive, and the people that I denigrate as being weaker than me, if we're in that world, well then, if I'm a woman, right? Why should I value the sanctity of the man, right? I'm not a man. When you told me to be less empathetic, why should I care about guys, right? Why should I care about what they think, or their family structures? What if I wish to usurp the power structure? And that is, I think, a social trend that you'll see a lot in conservative circles. Women who actually kind of despise men, who kind of say abhorrent shit about men and say like, oh well, that's just the way that men are. Um, and a lot of this quote unquote man hating. I think that a lot of that was actually caused by the conservative, mechanisms that were created by the isolating conditions and the neoliberal attitudes of the isolating conditions of car dependency, which were created by slavery, and the liberal attitudes. And Ronald Reagan is a liberal. Look the word up. He is, textbook liberal. In fact, there's a reason we say like classical liberal and not, and because that's actually more liberal. Our liberals are just like, progressives at this point. A lot of them are just progressives who haven't read Marx. But so that is why the family structure has been devalued for you conservatives out there. It's because you told people to be less empathetic, or you didn't. You didn't do slavery, and you aren't Ronald Reagan, so don't feel too bad about it. But if you have been defending, a lot of, if you have been defending Reagan, well, maybe think: do you prefer your women in the correct place? Do you prefer your families to be what you believe to be normal, or do you care about slavery? Are you gonna be? You can be anti-slavery, or you can be pro pro family values. But I really think that those two ideas conflict more heavily than you might think. Um, and another big one, woke education. Yeah, oh, I know a lot of you have been talking about like, oh, our education's woke now. Our education, it's all like gay. They're teaching kids to be like gay and trans, and I don't think that's true at all. But you know what caused the actual, because there are instances of teachers and whatnot promoting more progressive values. Do you know what caused that specifically? It was the propagation of racism. It created such a deep wound in our society, and it's created such a social collective trauma that the snapback to that often includes, and this is actually something I do think, as a lefty, it often includes going too far, and not going too far in like the necessarily spreading correct information. I mean going too far as in sometimes veering into misinformation. Whoopsie daisy. Sometimes veering into misinformation just to not seem racist, because the shadow of racism is so grand, so strong, that just being racist alone is something that is awful. It's created the discussion around racism, right? Like, but before, if we didn't have slavery the way we did, there's a reason, like, why America is the place that thinks about racism in this way. Why, you go to Europe and people are like, they don't care about racism. It's because the things we did were so awful, they were so dehumanizing, that they actually made people uh far far more aware of their actions in the future. So if you hate this woke education, trans gay, teaching the kids that it's all right to be all that nonsense, well, I think that you should be beefing with slavery. That the institution of slavery has wronged you in this instance. Because you wouldn't have to live in a world that was like that if it was not for the propagation of slavery. Slavery made people act in a way that overcompensates. So frequently, I hear things from my brother Jax, who lives in Chicago, and what he'll always say to me is like somebody is like being too, you know, they are going in such a strong direction to avoid sounding racist or to avoid feeling racist, even if it's not racist, that they're actively like saying things that are just wrong. Like a lot of people like there's recently been this narrative to say, instead of saying black, say African American, right? Um and even though that's completely that's completely against the reality of the situation. African Americans weren't discriminated against because they were from Africa or whatever. Because a lot of people who were discriminated against by anti-black laws didn't look black at all. They were discriminated against specifically because they were black, right? And a lot of that woke education, if you will, was created by the pushback from racism. And our modern conception of racism was obviously fueled by slavery. Holy shit, Lil bro was on one. Anyway, but another thing is sexual immorality. You might be thinking, yeah, I hate all these transes, all these gays. Maybe you don't even think that personally. I know most conservatives don't think they hate gay people. Um, But you might be like, I hate all this like fetish nonsense, and they've got like furries in our schools. And well, I've got good news for you. Well, I've got bad news for you, because obviously conservatives are a little bit more likely to support slavery, just considering the historical context of it, because it's our tradition or our culture or whatever. But uh, sexual immorality. One of the main things that I think has caused the development of weird ass kinks is the isolation that we've created. And you might be saying like, oh, well, there are people with these kinks in places that aren't as urbanized. Yeah, but like, let's be real. America kind of rocks that shit, right? Look on Pornhub. We got the weirdest shit possibly in the world, short only of Japan, which, oh my god, that I could do a whole video on how fascism made the Japanese like absolute freaks. Dude, fascism and isolationism, which again, even that is partially because of racism. So even across the world, racism has made us kinky as hell. But one of the things that caused it, obviously the isolation. But another thing that caused it, I think, is the fact that we uh got people into like there's a reason they call like BDSM, like they call that like a master slave dynamic. Like let's be that was complete. I don't even know how you can avoid the like the psychosexual implications of our slavery history, right? If you want people to not be like sexual freaks, like sexually repressed weirdos, one, make it so that they can walk outside and go somewhere and they don't have to hop in the car. Because let's be real, hopping in the car sucks. Most people aren't massive fans of, oh, I'm gonna go in the car. I'm gonna go down the. Typically, when you get in your car, you immediately feel this large sense of dread, and you're like, I don't. Oh my god. And you're like, I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to do anything. That this thing is an inconvenience to haul, and an inconvenience to fuel, and it's expensive. Dude, where's that fucking zombie? And but it's also just like people are freaks because we got them into BDSM early. We got them into we exposed people to dehumanization that it has created. I think it created a lot of our fetishes in America, and it created a lot of our fetish communities because people often have sexual desires related to their real life desires and their real life experiences, right? You don't get a piss kink for nothing. You get a piss kink because you peed yourself in kindergarten, and your teacher said it was all right, and then that made you feel a little funny. You know, that's a fucked up example, but that's the type of shit that can cause that. Just weird shit that made you feel maybe safe or comfortable, or maybe even just a compartmentalization of it. But so you got your sexual immorality, you got your woke education, you got your decline of the traditional family. Here's another one: anti-police sentiment. You might be saying like, oh, how does slavery affect people hating the cops? People hate the cops because they need to be controlled or whatever. If you're on that Hobbes type shit. But I would strongly argue that the reason that people are so anti-cop right now is because of the history of slavery in America. Because of Ronald Reagan, let's be real. Because let's say that you have this initiative. Maybe we'll call it hard on disobedience, right? And it seems to target the crimes that, specifically black people do. Crimes that black people are more likely to do. Like, white people aren't as culturally as likely to smoke weed, but you just made it so that smoking weed is a biggie. Well, now you'll find that a lot of motherfuckers who smoke weed, who tend to be black people, well, they don't like that, and they're actually not a big fan of the police anymore. Not a big fan of the government. Okay, and then you take that and you do that for a few years, right? Just have the police be this hostile entity to black Americans. And well, what do you know it? You've just created a world wherein it is profitable, where it is not profitable, where it is so easy for these communities to hate the police. And what does the modern left do? Where do a lot of their cultural trends come from? They come from black Americans, right? And so because black Americans hate the police, leftists soon follow. As minority communities are often leaders in terms of social trends. And so now fucking everybody hates the police because, well, one, it's easy to hate them, right? Like, oh, they stopped me, they gave me a ticket, they did this, they did that, and that just spirals. Like, you don't see this heavy anti-police sentiment anywhere else, like, to the same degree. Well, I mean, maybe a few other places, but like in America, we hate even our conservatives hate the police more, right? Even our conservatives are not fans of authority at all. And part of that, is with the American, dream of fighting off the Brits with a musket and, a cigar in the other hand. And, but a large part of that is caused directly by Black Americans being mistreated by Ronald Reagan's policies. Ronald Reagan's policies favored a world wherein Black people were not welcome, and they said, "What if Ronald Reagan wasn't welcome?" And this might seem a little bit more tangential, but obviously slavery created our modern conception of racism, right? It greatly informed. Like, we were racist before, but because of the ways in which we were racist, and because of the ways in which we normalized being racist, right? If you have people as their jobs treat people like absolute shit, if you have people as their jobs just be doo-doo poo-poo ass to another group of people, well, eventually they're going to rationalize it, because if they didn't rationalize it, they would feel pretty bad, right? And so what you get from all this slavering is you get people who have so deeply in their heads justified that the status quo that allows me to ruin the lives of Black people, that's all right, and actually they deserve it, and yada yada yada. And so racism uh, you know, caused Ronald Reagan's policy, which caused, um, you know, uh, fucking more police-centered racism. Racism from the state, which ultimately led to the police being completely hated in America. Like, if you make a joke about a cop, even cops join in. I you know, this is gonna say a lot about me. But I was in a group with a single police officer, and it was this D&D group, and it was like at this store or whatever, and somebody was talking about this dead cop in this game, and they crashed their car into a tree, and it wrapped around, and they died, and somebody's like, "Did somebody cook bacon?" Even like a police guy laughed, right? If even your police are in on the anti-police sentiment, you're cooked, right? You're basted, you are sous vide, you know, you're spit liver. And so you might also be thinking, okay, well, I care about immigration too. What about immigration? Oh, that's easy. So because we created a policy of relying on cheap labor from Black Americans, uh when that cheap labor went away, we didn't exactly want to give it up, right? Because we were so used to free, cheap labor. So the solution: allow as many people as possible, right? We're having an economic boom. It's the 1930s. And America was already made by a whole bunch of immigrants. So, okay, well, we got to let in cheaper people. We got to let in people who have less high standards, right? We have to let in people who, don't really care about their rights as much. Well, what that created was a world in which most of the a lot of the workforce was imported specifically to do those jobs. I mean, even today, you see in construction, you see a lot of Mexican Americans. If you don't want Mexican Americans or people that you believe to be illegals, or people should quote unquote go back to their own country, if you don't want them in America, well, that's slavery's fault. Like, you can't be a fan of slavery and Reagan, and Reagan was also because he specifically created the move for corporatism, and in that move for corporatism, a lot of corporations want to make money, and it turns out people who come from countries which live low, like have lower quality of life, turns out they want to be in the country that has higher quality of life. And so what happened is you have a bunch of companies actively searching for international labor. And if you're not in America, you might be thinking, oh, well, this, doesn't affect me. It does affect you, because that's the reason why companies abroad saw the opportunity to say, hey, we're going to do the same. Hey, we're in the EU and we don't have that much immigration. What if we did? Also, our modern conception of borders was And this is one problem that I think actually wasn't caused by either. This is the rare exception. Um, it was caused by anti-Chinese sentiment, and anti-Chinese sentiment, I think, I would argue, because racism was so normalized by slavery, was caused by slavery. So it's not directly caused by racism, but it was caused by slavery. Used to, and in ye olden days, we didn't actually. Yeah, immigration was easier when we didn't really care that much about it. But now that it's a hot topic, now that it's like, oh my god, they're ruining this country, and like people like generally cared about it, but right, it wasn't considered profitable enough to be worthwhile in enforcing the way we are, at least in America. Now, granted, in a lot of other places, it was obviously just like, oh, if you might get killed at the border, for all I know. And obviously, we don't have that much data on stuff really before the 1400s in terms of immigration, or even more recent times. We don't really have that much data. But before our racism, our ban on Chinese immigrants, we didn't actually have that many border laws in America. We just sort of didn't think about it, right? We would maybe complain about immigrants on the news or the radio, but the thing that made it like an actual like social problem that made you think, and this one's a little bit of a cop out, because this one just made you as a conservative think about this is a problem. But I would definitely say that racism caused by slavery in indirectly fueled racism caused by not slavery. Like anti-Chinese racism or whatnot. And also, actually, I think I have a stronger argument than I even knew when I started this point. Um, the need for cheap labor is what brought in a lot of Chinese immigrants, which because a lot of people thought that their jobs were quote unquote being taken, even though they were simply being worked by corporate entities who want to make as much money as possible. Because a lot of people were essentially imported, or given opportunities that they wouldn't have had regardless, because it was so profitable as a, say, Chinese person to go to America and start a business or whatever. All of a sudden, you have a bunch of Chinese people coming over. And, like I said this point earlier, but I said it more towards, Mexican Americans. But that I would say that is what caused our border problem, and what's caused our, and this goes for left or right. I know that I said this would be the right section, but if you're right wing, that's the reason this is even like an issue to you, right? Because your nation. I said China. I mean, did I mean Japanese people? Was it the anti-Chinese? I'm pretty sure it was the Anti-Chinese Act. I'm not going to look it up because, like I said, this is not a video essay. This is me just sort of bitching about how much I hate slavery, and how much I hate Ronald Reagan, and how much I hate American car dependency. And a lot of these problems have roots before car dependency, so I know that, car dependency is in the title. But, like, most of our modern problems, car dependency is a factor. A lot of our old problems, car dependency obviously wasn't a factor because we weren't quite as car dependent. Anyway, and so we've got anti-police sentiment. Crime is caused by the shadow of slavery, because black people were so like held back by slavery that it inadvertently created a world in which crime is usually considered a mechanism to escape social problems, right? Like, people don't do crime for no reason. They do it so that they can get out of their situations, so that they can have a better life, right? Well, that too was caused by slavery. As black people didn't get the head starts. Like, think about it. If your dad saved $5 in 1910 and you kept that $5 going, right? How much would that be? And yeah, your dad probably didn't save that $5 all the way from 1910 till now, but a lot of people's did, and a lot of people are generationally just so much richer because they're white that it created the wealth inequality is like one of the biggest causes, not just poverty, because in a lot of nations where everybody's not doing well, crime is still pretty low. See Japan, whilst Japan does have wealth inequality, it is not quite as massive as America's. I don't believe that's actually something I'm going to look up, so I don't give you an incorrect answer. I'm alt tapped, by the way, so sorry if the Minecraft rain paused. Uh, Japan wealth inequality. This is like the second time I brought up Japan, but it's because Japan and America are so inextricably tied. Wow. Okay, so until very recently, Japan didn't have that much wealth inequality. Never mind, they have close to us, but not. We obviously beat them like hand and foot in terms of wealth inequality. But there are other reasons why Japan doesn't really have as much crime. But wealth inequality is ultimately a creator of crime, right? If you don't have as much money as your neighbor, you're obviously going to want to steal from your neighbor. If your neighbor has just as little as you, obviously stealing from someone who's already poor maybe isn't as profitable, right? Like, why would I risk my life to the police to steal? And some people will do it anyway, obviously. But why would I still risk my life to steal when I might not even get something in return? And so because of that wealth inequality created by slavery, we have had a massive spike in crime. Not to mention white collar crime. Not enough people talk about it, but Reagan's massive deregulation policies, most certainly were one of the massive causes in terms of corruption and kickbacks and things of that nature. I think that I've made my points, and if you agree with me, I'm sorry that if you're not conservative, the conservative part was so wrong, but the good thing about arguments is that you can say them to people who aren't you. So if you listen to this and you're like, well, I'm not conservative. A lot of that was for conservatives. Congratulations. You now have knowledge that you can use against your annoying conservative aunt whenever she's bitching about like illegal aliens or literal aliens because conservatives are not in touch with reality. Anyway, this has been Rantcraft. My name is Lilith. I am going to go smoke this stogie, smoke this grass, and I will see you later. Actually, it does not look like a cigar. But anyway, fuck Israel and bye.